Clara's journey began on a fog-laden evening that felt both eerily familiar and utterly alien. She had heard tales of Phantom Bay, whispered in the darkest corners of seedy taverns and old marineres' gloomy recollections. But nothing could have prepared her for the sight that unfolded before her very eyes. The bay, shrouded in thick, swirling mist, revealed itself as a desolate stretch of coastline with the hulking silhouette of an abandoned harbour protruding into the restless sea. With each hesitant step on the creaking wooden planks of the decaying docks, Clara's heart pounded louder as echoes of the past, layered with sorrow and malevolence, silently invaded her thoughts. The harbour's abandoned state, marked by rusted anchors and splintered signs of a once thriving maritime community, beckoned Clara deeper into its mystery. Shadows danced beneath the beam of the moon, creating intricate patterns on the worn cobblestones, and the constant lapping of the relentless tide against time-worn pilings served as a steady reminder of nature's inexorable power. The overwhelming sense of isolation and despair pressed in on her, like an unyielding storm urging her forward into the unknown, a metaphorical journey into the hidden corners of her own soul, where grief and hope collided in a haunting embrace. As Clara wandered through the narrow, unkempt pathways of the harbour, every creak and distant whisper appeared laden with the echoes of sorrowful voices from a forgotten era. The fog seemed to cling to her skin like an intangible shroud, while spectral silhouettes emerged briefly from the mist, only to vanish into the gloom. The legends of the cursed bay resonated with her inner yearning for resolution, compelling her to search for remnants of humanity amid the decaying relics of a once mighty maritime community. Every step was a quiet act of defiance in the face of supernatural dread and melancholic inevitability. The night deepened, as did the palpable weight of history and regret around her, compelling Clara to seek answers not only about the bay, but also the tumultuous chapters of her own past. Amid the silence, soft echoes of the ship's creaking timbers and far-off moans of despair whispered secrets through the cold air. The rhythmic pulsing of the waves created an eerie symphony with the murmurs of the dead, conjuring images of a cursed vessel that had sailed with a dire purpose before sinking into the annals of time. Clara's every footstep resonated with both hope and trepidation as she ventured ever further into the labyrinth of mystery and melancholy. Upon approaching the derelict remnants of the long-forgotten ship, Clara felt as if she was stepping into a different realm altogether. The vessel loomed ominously against the bleak backdrop of the bay, its rotted figure swaying with an otherworldly rhythm that defied the natural order. Legends spoke of a notorious pirate and his vengeful soul, binding the crew to an eternal fate of unrest. In the ghostly beam of moonlight, the ship's outline seemed to pulse with a spectral energy that beckoned her closer, drawing her into the tragic narrative of lives forever etched into the waves of the past. With trepidation and an unwavering determination, Clara boarded the ghostly ship, each step echoing across the fragile timbers of the decaying deck. The silence was punctured by distant cries that mingled with the rustling of ancient timbers, merging the realms of the living and the dead. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, the ethereal forms of spectral figures began to materialize. A silent procession of lost souls, whose mournful gazes and forlorn expressions spoke of an existence burdened by regret and inexorable fate. Here, in the oppressive stillness of the spectral vessel, every element of the past seemed to hold its breath. The ship's interior was a maze of shadow and quiet despair, where each crevice whispered untold stories of unfulfilled dreams and unresolved sins. Clara's senses were overwhelmed by the cold presence of departed souls, as the walls echoed with murmurs that evoked both sadness and a sense of foreboding. Somewhere amid the tattered remnants of ship logs and fading inscriptions on the wood, she felt a compelling urge to uncover the secrets that had doomed these souls to wander in eternal purgatory. The air itself was thick with the weight of history, burdened by the ceaseless sorrow of betrayal and treachery. A quiet warning of the dangers that lay in waiting. As Clara ventured further into the vessel's bowels, she discovered a narrow corridor adorned with faded cryptic carvings that hinted at arcane rituals and haunting pacts made long ago. The carvings, etched with painstaking detail and obscured by the relentless decay of time, suggested stories of cursed treasure and desperate bargains struck under a gaze of merciless gods. In that eerie gloom, every obscure symbol became a portal into a past drenched in regret and spectral suffering. The corridor itself seemed to breathe, as the age-old whispers of lost souls mingled with the salty brine of the bay, urging her onward into the forbidden recesses of memory and malediction. Within the core of the ship, resting like a forgotten relic, lay a weathered journal bound in tattered leather, its pages yellowed with the relentless march of time. Drawn by an inexplicable force, Clara picked up the journal, her fingertips trembling as they traced the embossed emblem of a notorious pirate long consigned to myth. The journal's entries chronicled a tragic and malevolent pact, sealed in desperation and wrought by forces beyond mortal comprehension. Each passage exuded despair and regret, while revealing the cryptic narrative of cursed souls destined to haunt the bay until a forbidden redemption could be found. As Clara carefully perused the journal, the brittle pages unfurled the story of a forlorn crew and their doomed captain, a man whose ambition had led him to forge alliances with primordial forces lurking in the darkest corners of existence. The entries spoke in solemn tones of pacts made under dire circumstances, where the line between salvation and damnation was as thin as the veil between life and death. With every word, the intensity of the bay's haunting presence grew, imbuing the silent vessel with an aura of both beauty and terror. The narrative flowed like a river of sorrow, carrying Clara deeper into the heart of a mystery that refused to let go of its tragic secrets. The journal recounted detailed rituals and desperate bargains sealed by moonlit pact tales that raised more questions than answers. Clara learned that the cursed ship had once borne the weight of betrayal and mistrust among its crew, as each soul had been lured by promises of otherworldly power and eternal fortune. The records detailed subtle shifts in reality, where the living world intertwined with the echoes of the departed in inexplicable manifestations. In the silent spaces between each faded word, the oppressive ambience of the cursed bay seethed with a palpable energy, as if the very air vibrated with the angst of souls condemned to wander the labyrinth of despair. Night wore on, and Clara found herself ensnared by the narrative spun in the musty pages of the journal. She began to connect the eerie presence of spectral apparitions around the bay to the tragic saga of the cursed crew. Every page she turned deepened her understanding of the sorrowful legacy bestowed upon the vessel and its ghostly inhabitants. The ghostly whispers resonated with her own buried memories, and a profound sadness enveloped her as she realized that many of the regrets penned in that weathered book were reflections of her own buried trauma. The relationship between the living and the dead blurred in the silent, oppressive dark of the bay, as the spectral ship swayed gently on the undulating sea. Clara's thoughts intermingled with the haunting accounts documented in the journal. Memories of a distant past, of choices irrevocable and promises unmet, surfaced with the cadence of the melancholic waves. The ship, an epitome of both decay and resilience, became a mirror to the inner turmoil of Clara's soul. A poignant reminder that sometimes one must confront the deepest shadows of their existence to unlock the secrets of redemption. The interplay between the cursed vessel and her own sorrow painted a macabre yet strangely beautiful tableaus of tragic destiny and spectral mourning. Restless whispers began to weave themselves around Clara's consciousness, their soft murmurings echoing her every doubt and fear. The disembodied voices recited fragments of the journal's narrative, blending seamlessly with the relentless soundscape of lapping water and creaking wood. In that moment of eerie convergence between memory and myth, Clara felt her determination waver as the spectral presence of unseen forces tugged at the edges of her reason. The symphony of despair and dread left her both mesmerized and terrified, as if she were suspended in a state of limbo caught between the tangible reality of her grief and the ethereal manifestations of the bay's tortured past. Venturing toward the ship's forgotten galley, Clara discovered relics of old life scattered among decaying remnants. A chipped porcelain cup here, a weathered captain's log there, each fragment a silent testament to lives both lived and lost. The room itself reeked of salt and age, its walls scarred by the passage of time and steeped in sorrow. As she carefully examined each artifact, Clara felt the burden of centuries pressing down on her shoulders, as if the relics carried the weight of lost love and unspoken regrets. Every object held within it an intrinsic yearning to tell a story, and together they formed a melancholic mosaic of a life long past. The oppressive silence of the vessel was at times broken by fleeting moments of lucidity, a sudden rustle in an abandoned corner, or the far-off clatter of crates tumbling in the wake of an unseen force. These transient occurrences caused Clara to pause and strain her ears, her mind racing to discern whether the sounds were mere tricks of the imagination or deliberate communications from another realm. The ever-present fog outside mirrored the mystifying blend of reality and spectral illusions that had come to define her journey. She realized that she was navigating not only a physical space fraught with mystery, but also the deeper labyrinth of her own vulnerabilities and unresolved grief. With the journal as her only guide, Clara pieced together the tragic events that had led to the cursed fate of the vessel and its inhabitants. The writings hinted at a pivotal moment when desperation had driven the pirate captain and his crew to make a fateful bargain with powers beyond mortal comprehension, a choice that shackled their souls to the bay for eternity. As she absorbed the harrowing revelations, the line between fact and fiction blurred, and the tormented spirits seemed to converge upon her very being. The oppressive melancholy of the cursed pact, recorded in delicate, sorrowful script, was now intertwined with her own journey of loss, beckoning her to confront the timeless agony of regret. The ghostly manifestations in the bay began to intensify as midnight approached, their presence shifting from mere whispers to tangible shadows that stalked the ship's corridors. Clara found herself momentarily enveloped by a spectral chill that swirled through the decaying structure, as if the very air had been tainted by resonated deeply with Clara's own soul-wrought memories, evoking an empathy that transcended the boundaries between the living and the ghostly. In that silent communion, a wordless understanding was forged, a testament to the universal burden of sorrow and the unyielding passage of regret through the corridors of time. Beyond the haunting figures and whispered recollections of lost kin, a more tangible dread began to seep into Clara's awareness. The atmosphere around the cursed vessel grew heavy, as if laden with the invisible shackles of time itself. The very air vibrated with a latent energy, an ancient, sorrowful power born from unfulfilled promises, and the lingering essence of a tortured legacy. Clara, though trembling at the magnitude of the spectral energy, pressed forward, propelled by an urgency to unearth the truth buried in the darkest depths of the bay. Each measured step was both an act of defiance against the oppressive past and a silent acknowledgement of her own inner demons. Moving carefully along the ship's weather-beaten deck, Clara's senses heightened as she became increasingly aware of subtle, ghostly handprints that seemed to linger on the decaying railings and worn wood. These spectral marks, faint yet unmistakable in the low light, appeared to weave a delicate tapestry of remembrance, a silent eulogy for souls whose lives had ended in regret. Each mark was a remnant of a story untold, a silent message from those forever entangled in the cursed pact that had condemned them. In that moment, Clara felt an overwhelming kinship with the lost souls. Their shared experiences of sorrow and desolation merging into a profound, collective lament that resonated through the very fabric of Phantom Bay. In the midst of this ghostly communion, a sudden, persistent gust of wind tore through the stagnant air, stirring the thick mist into a maelstrom of swirling shapes and fragmented memories. The force of nature mingled with the intangible sorrow of the bay, creating an atmosphere both macabre and breathtaking. Clara clutched the weathered journal closer to her heart, as if it were the sole anchor to her reality amidst the chaos. The wind's haunting wail, reminiscent of countless lamentations, served as a stark reminder that the cursed past was alive, continuously reaching out from the shadowy recesses of time to reclaim lost souls and secrets alike. With the spectral presence growing ever more insistent, Clara resolved to follow a narrow, winding passageway that led away from the main deck and into what appeared to be the vessel's forgotten brig. The passage was narrow and claustrophobic, the walls closely huddled and dripping with the weight of history's untold sorrows. Every careful step felt like a move, deeper into an abyss, where time and space lost all meaning, and the murmur of the dead grew louder with each passing moment. The oppressive atmosphere was almost tangible, a thick, sorrow-drenched reminder that she was treading on the brink of a truth so heavy and sorrowful that it could shatter the soul of even the most steadfast wanderer. The brig, a relic of strict discipline and enforced loyalty, was a chamber of memories steeped in quiet agony and remorse. Here, the walls seemed alive with the echoes of forlorn chants and whispers from those who had once been confined within these very spaces. As Clara explored the cramped quarters, she found remnants of personal belongings carefully hidden away. A small faded locket, a delicate scarf tangled in the rusted bars, and other tokens of lives abruptly halted by destiny's cruel hand. Each artifact bore witness to an existence carved out in anguish, leaving her with an indelible sense of the tragic interplay between fate and the unyielding darkness of the cursed bay. In the dim light of the brig, Clara took a moment to steady her trembling hands as she absorbed the cumulative sorrow that seemed to seep from every wall and crevice. The space was not merely a prison for ghosts. It was a sanctuary of unspeakable remorse, a hallowed ground where the restless hearts of condemned souls found a fleeting respite from their eternal penance. In that space, every whisper was a remembrance of love lost and promises broken, an enduring elegy that transcended mortal grief. Clara's own heart, burdened by past missteps and lingering regrets, resonated with the spectral lament that permeated the room, forming a silent understanding that reached across the divide of life and death. Outside, the wind continued to wage its relentless battle with the swirling fog, scattering spectral echoes across the otherwise barren landscape of the bay. Clara, determined yet haunted by the revelations of the brig, recalled the journal's cryptic passages and wondered if there might be a hidden clue about the pirates' infamous pact somewhere further afield. With resolve hardened by sorrow and touched by a strange kind of hope, she retraced her steps along the ship's weathered decks. The journey back seemed transformed into an odyssey of memories, each step a slow unveiling of a personal history, interwoven with the tragedies of those condemned to eternal wandering in the Phantom Bay. As Clara made her cautious way back to the outer rim of the vessel, the spectral manifestations began to align with the rhythm of the tides. The ghostly apparitions, once sporadic and elusive, now coalesced into more distinct forms that seemed to follow her every movement like sorrowful shadows. The struggle between light and dark played out upon the decaying planks as the moon cast shimmering rays across the restless sea. In that ethereal interplay of celestial light and haunting darkness, Clara recognized the gravity of her quest. This journey was more than a search for forbidden secrets. It was an inevitable confrontation with the darker recesses of her own spirit. The night deepened further as the haunted echoes of the cursed past intensified with every heartbeat. Clara found herself drawn to a distant, ominous structure that seemed to tower over the harbour. A decrepit lighthouse whose faint glow struggled against the consuming mist. The lighthouse, much like the tragic vessel, bore silent testimony to the relentless march of time and the decay of forgotten eras. Its cold stone walls radiated an ancient melancholy, as if the tower itself mourned the loss of a once resilient beacon of hope. The structure beckoned her, promising answers hidden within its shadowy corridors, and compelling her to step into an arena where past and present coalesced in a mournful elegy of lost souls. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Clara approached the base of the lighthouse, its weathered facade scarred by countless years of relentless storms and spectral misfortunes. The surrounding ground was littered with fragments of historywood's relics, rusted trinkets, and moss-covered remnants of lives once tied to this forlorn monument. Every detail of the scene resonated with the tragic beauty of decay, a solemn reminder that nothing ever truly vanishes, but rather lingers, trapped in a perpetual cycle of sorrow and remembrance. The lighthouse, standing as a silent sentinel to the bay's dark legacy, held the promise of unveiling secrets that might yet redeem the anguished souls bound to its grim domain. Inside the decrepit lighthouse, a labyrinth of spiraling staircases and hidden chambers awaited her careful exploration. Each step upward was a pilgrimage into the heart of darkness, a journey punctuated by the soft, mournful echoes of the past. The air grew colder and denser with each passing moment, as if the walls themselves were imbued with the timeless energy of 1,000 forgotten sorrows. Clara's every footfall was accompanied by the lingering presence of those who had once trusted the lighthouse's promise of safe passage, only to find themselves ensnared by the spectral curse that now haunted every corner of Phantom Bay. Her determination to uncover the truth was matched only by the profound melancholy that emanated from the stone corridors. At the summit of the lighthouse, Clara found herself in a small circular room with a panoramic view of the troubled bay below. The window panes, fogged with the residue of time and spectral mist, offered a haunting silhouette of the decaying harbour and the ghostly ship that had set her on this path of sorrow and revelation. In that elevated isolation, the weight of history pressed upon her, as though every lost spirit and every shattered dream below was reaching out to touch her heart. The overwhelming solitude mingled with the bitter hope of uncovering an elusive redemption, a fragile promise carried on the winds of despair that navigated the delicate balance between sin and salvation in the cursed bay. Within the circular room, Clara discovered a set of intricately carved maps and faded schematics that seemed to detail the storied past of Phantom Bay. The documents, meticulously etched with care, chronicled ancient maritime routes, secret hideaways, and the tragic coordinates of the pirates' infamous pact. As she deciphered the cryptic notations and obscure symbols, a quiet, unyielding dread seized her, a realization that the key to resolving the bay's sorrowful enigma lay in unlocking these long-forgotten geographical secrets. This slow, painstaking decoding became a symbolic mirror of her internal struggle, a deliberate confrontation with the layers of loss and guilt that had haunted her soul for so long. Hours slipped by in a hushed symphony of rain, tapping on cracked stone, and the ceaseless murmur of restless spirits drifting through the lighthouse corridors. Each piece of historical evidence Clara uncovered was imbued with the tragedy of lives cut short by fate's merciless hand. In the fragile interplay between knowledge and despair, she could feel the spectral presence intensifying its resonance, a constant reminder that some mysteries were deeply etched into the fabric of time and could only be unraveled with a heavy price. Though weariness sought to claim her, a profound, almost imperceptible hope propelled her onward, echoing the unquenchable desire to honor both the lost and the living. Leaving the lighthouse with the cryptic maps safely clutched in her hands, Clara returned to the decaying harbor, where the night had by now grown almost surreal. The once muffled sounds of the spectral ship had transformed into a vivid chorus of mournful voices and ethereal hymns that filled the churning air. The crumbling docks, haunted by long-forgotten dreams and the echoes of unspoken tragedies, became the stage upon which the interplay of light and shadow intensified. Every element of the cursed bay, the swirling fog, the relentless tide, the spectral apparitions seemed to narrate a saga of epic sorrow and predestined fate, inviting Clara to unlock the intertwined destinies of its haunted souls. With each step taken along the weathered pathways of the harbor, Clara felt the inescapable presence of the past weaving itself into the present. The ghostly figures that had once lingered in the corridors of the ship now roamed freely along the decaying quays, their silent lamentations blending with the natural cacophony of wind and wave. The faded maps she bore in her hands hinted at a hidden enclave deep within Phantom Bay, a secluded cove where the spectral energies converged in an otherworldly nexus. In this quiet convergence of history, memory, and the relentless pulse of nature, Clara sensed that her destiny was irrevocably linked with the tortured souls that roamed these forlorn shores. Venturing toward the secluded cove revealed by the ancient maps, Clara discovered a labyrinth of overgrown trails, winding through cliffs that seemed to cradle centuries of whispered secrets. The interplay between rough stone and turbulent sea created an atmosphere of both desolation and poignant beauty, where each echo of the past was etched into the jagged edges of the coastline. A gentle, almost imperceptible glow emanated from a distant corner of the cove, a spectral beacon that invited her to step closer into a place where sorrow and revelation coexisted with the silent majesty of nature. In that liminal space, the scars of ancient betrayal and the echoes of lost love wove together in a timeless elegy that called for catharsis and forgiveness. As Clara navigated the tangled pathways of the secret cove, a thick hush enveloped her, a silence so profound it felt almost sacred. Here, amidst nature's raw, unyielding beauty and the lingering aura of ghostly sentinels, the secrets of the cursed pact began to unfurl before her eyes. The cove, like a natural shrine, held remnants of an otherworldly ceremony, scattered moss-covered relics, symbols etched onto stone, and faint traces of candlelight that had long since extinguished. The realization that this hidden enclave served as a repository of timeless grief and spectral hope filled Clara with both sorrow and an earnest determination to rewrite the tragic narrative, one that had bound the lost souls to Phantom Bay for far too long. In the hallowed stillness of the cove, Clara encountered a solitary figure, a spectral apparition, whose presence was at once both gentle and commanding. This guardian of old, with its eyes aglow with ancient wisdom and sorrow, embodied the very essence of Phantom Bay's tortured spirit. The apparition did not speak, but its silent gaze conveyed the storied tragedy of a life bound by unfulfilled promises and eternal longing. In that fraught moment, Clara understood that the key to dispelling the curse and mending the tapestry of lost lives lay in embracing the past without surrendering to its desolation. The encounter carved a permanent impression on her soul, anchoring her resolve to transcend the spectral boundaries of fate. Determined to honor that silent communion and the hopes encapsulated within the spectral guardian's gaze, Clara dedicated herself to piecing together the final elusive fragments of the curse. Under the spectral luminescence of a reluctant moon, she meticulously deciphered the maps and cryptic inscriptions gathered from both the decrepit ship and the lighthouse. With a methodical determination born of personal loss and a desire for redemption, she navigated the shattered echoes of ancient promises and unsaid apologies. Each deciphered symbol and every long-forgotten inscription illuminated the path to releasing the trapped souls, imbuing her journey with the bittersweet realization that the process of unraveling age-old regrets was as much a path toward healing her own shattered spirit as it was a quest for redemption for the lost. As dawn broke over Phantom Bay, the bleak morning light illuminated the spectral remnants of a once great tragedy, now on the cusp of transformation. Clara stood alone at the harbor's edge, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the restless sea met the pale light of a new day. The cursed legacy of the bay, woven through with sorrow and ancient regret, had slowly begun to unravel before her determined actions. In that bittersweet liminal moment, she understood that the journey of pain and revelation was not merely about banishing ghosts, but about embracing loss, accepting the transitory nature of life, and finding solace in the quiet promise that even the deepest wounds might one day give way to healing. With the murmurs of phantom voices softening into a hopeful silence, Clara took one final resolute step forward, her path now illuminated by the tender light of redemption, echoing the eternal truth that every sorrowful end may herald a new beginning.